missions to the Moon. Favorite target for space travel. Source, New Scientist. By VisualGK.com. The space age began as a race between two state powers. These days, many nations and private companies are involved, and the pace of exploration has ramped up. These are some of the most important moon missions, past and present. (1959). Luna 2. Soviet Union. After several failed attempts, this probe was the first object to reach the surface of the Moon, crashing into it. 1964. Ranger 7. U.S. The first U.S. mission to land on the Moon. The probe sent back close-up images of the surface. (1966). Surveyor 1. U.S. An uncrewed lander that gathered data about the lunar surface, needed for the Apollo missions. 1968. Zond 5. Soviet Union. A probe carrying two live tortoises, flies and plants. It circled the Moon twice, before returning its payload, still alive, back to Earth. July 1969. Apollo 11. U.S. Neil Armstrong becomes the first person to walk on the Moon. November 1969. Apollo 12. U.S. Astronauts Charles Conrad and Alan Bean land on the Moon. (1970). Luna 17. Soviet Union. The first robotic rover on the Moon. February 1971. Apollo 14. U.S. A crewed mission to a more mountainous area. The astronauts collected almost 43 kilograms of rock. July 1971. Apollo 15. U.S. The first mission to use a lunar rover vehicle to explore the surface. April 1972. Apollo 16. U.S. Astronauts spent almost 3 days on the surface, doing science and exploring. December 1972. Apollo 17. U.S. Gene Cernan walks on the surface, the last person to do so. August 1976. Luna 24. Soviet Union. A lander that returned samples of moon rocks to Earth. 1980s. No moon missions were launched in this decade. (1990). Hiten. Japan. Japan's first space probe orbited the Earth and Moon for 3 years, before being crashed into the lunar surface. 1994. Clementine. U.S. A probe that tested how communications equipment and sensors responded to long-term exposure to deep space. It also observed an asteroid called 1620 Geographos. (2003). Smart 1. Europe. This probe orbited the Moon for 3 years. Among other things, it discovered deposits of calcium and high points on the Moon that are in constant sunlight. 2007. Selene. Japan. Japan's second lunar probe, which among other things, performed sensitive measurements of the Moon's gravitational field. (2007). Chang'e 1. China. A lunar orbiter that conducted the first microwave imaging of the Moon. 2008. Chandrayaan 1. India. This mission included an orbiter and impactor, making India the 5th nation to reach the Moon's surface. The orbiter made high-resolution maps of the Moon's mineral composition. 2009. Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. US. Created high-resolution maps of the surface, to aid future missions, for instance by assessing landing sites. 2010. Chang'e 2. China. A similar mission to Chang'e 1, laying the groundwork for future missions. 2013. Chang'e 3. China. A robotic lander, accompanied by a rover, called U2. January 2019. Chang'e 4. China. The first ever craft to land on the side of the moon, that is always facing away from Earth. It included a moon garden, in which cotton seeds briefly sprouted. April 2019. Beresheet. Private. This craft from firm Space Seal crash-landed on the moon. It was carrying notoriously hardy creatures, called tardigrades. Experiments have since suggested that they would probably have been mushed on impact. (2020). Chang'e 5. China. A lander that collected samples of moon rock before returning them to Earth. A little water was found in the rock. The first sample return mission to the moon since the Apollo era. August 2022. Danuri. South Korea. A mission that plans to image the moon using polarized light. August 2022. Capstone. US. This recently launched lunar orbiter will test the stability of the planned orbit for the Gateway space station around the moon. 2022. Artemis 1. US. First test flight around the moon in this program. (2022). Map rover. Private. The company Lunar Outpost plans to collect lunar dust and transfer ownership of it to NASA in the first ever sale of space resources. 2022. Asagimo. Private. UK-based company Spacebit plans to launch a small, four-legged robot to explore tunnels left by ancient lava flows. 2022. Luna 25. Russia. A robotic lander designed to explore the moon's natural resources. Part of the Lunar Globe program, which aims to build a robotic base on the moon. Please like, share and subscribe. VisualGK.com